Today I want to test some art hacks, but I don't want to test any old hacks. I want to do specifically hacks that you have all sent me. I have been looking through my YouTube comments and my messages to try and find as many as I can. So today we will be testing out 4 hacks. I'm going to read you what the comment was and then we can get straight into testing it. So let's get straight into the first hack. The easiest way to get skin is just sienna and shade. So if I want to draw skin tones, I need to start off by drawing a face. Now I'm going to draw the eyes and mouth all together. I'm just going to roughly do this. And then I'm going to do my own skin tone on the left hand side and I will test this hack on the right. But I want to make sure that the eyes and mouth are all the same. So I want to have a line going down the centre, and then I am going to begin on the left hand side with how I would draw the skin. Now I'm using a mixture of browns and greys as well as some pinks, and I sometimes use some purples and some yellows as well. I am doing it quite roughly. I'm not doing it as detailed as I would usually do. This is really just to show roughly colour-wise what my drawing style looks like. I basically really look at the reference and try and pick out any odd colours I can see, even if it's colours you wouldn't necessarily think would be in there. Alright, so that's my side done. I'm just going to touch up the eyes a bit and add a little bit more detail on here. And I will do the same to the other side when I finish that. So the hack was for the skin to use sienna and shade. So I'm only going to use the sienna pencil and I will use the black as well, just to make the darks a bit darker. Now using just the one colour is very different from my normal drawing style. And to be honest, I did find it quite tricky. I basically tried to go into this by looking at it like I was drawing a graphite picture and just try and look at the lights and darks and fill those in, trying to ignore the colours. But even going about it in that way, I did still find it quite hard. So once I put down some rough shading with the sienna pencil, I went in and put in the darker areas with the black. And then I went back over the top of those with the sienna. I still went about drawing this in the same way in that I wanted to build it up with light layers. I didn't want to just go in full force with sienna. I did add a couple more colours around particularly the top eyelid, just because I didn't want the eyes to look too different between the two sides. And at the end, I did go back over the eyelashes. The absolute last thing I decided to do here was blend it all together with the white pencil, and that just helped it become a bit smoother. That seemed the fairest thing to do since on my side I did blend with a lighter pencil at the end. So now looking at both side by side, I personally will carry on drawing as I do. The other side is just not my style. For me personally, it doesn't give the depth and colour flexibility that I like. Alright, let's take a look at our next hack. First Last says, dipping your pencils in Vaseline make the colours so much more vibrant and also like a glossy oil pastel effect in a way. A little Vaseline goes a long way. Take a rag or a paper towel and pat your paper where you've drawn, patting, not rubbing, to keep from smearing your work. I swear by this method of using Vaseline with colour pencils to give a vibrant result. Now because this is mostly testing the vibrancy of the pencils when using Vaseline versus how they are normally, I'm going to start off by making some swatches so that I can see what the colour is without any Vaseline. I'm going to use Prismacolor pencils for this, and I've just picked up 3 random colours. So I'm going to shade 3 little swatches going from light to dark. Now I don't actually have any brand name Vaseline in the house, but I do have an own brand one, and I'm sure that it'll work the same. So I'm just going to take the pencil and dip it in the Vaseline. I don't know if I should wipe it off a bit. I'm just going to wipe off a little bit of the excess, and then I'm going to draw the swatches in the same way. Now I wouldn't say for me personally with these pencils it's making a particular difference to the vibrancy. I would say that it is a little bit harder to use them. It's not so much doing what I expect it to. The pencil's not going down in the way that I expect it to. It's looking a bit kind of clumpy. So I thought maybe I should try putting some Vaseline straight on the paper, just a little bit, and then drawing on top of that. I would say that that was a bit different. If anything, I would probably say it was harder to control. Then I thought Prismacolor are quite a waxy pencil, so maybe it would work better with a more oil-based pencil. So I decided to do the same test on the Polychromos. The first thing to do was once again swatch out the colours without any Vaseline, and then I can see what they look like normally. So now I have my control swatches. I once again dipped these pencils in Vaseline. The Polychromos were a tiny bit easier to control than the Prismacolors, but still I did find it quite hard work. The pencils were maybe a tiny bit more vibrant. The last thing that was in the comment was to dab them with a paper towel. So I'm going to do that now, and I have to say I don't really think it's doing anything. Maybe I haven't got enough Vaseline down. So I personally wouldn't use this hack. It might be that I'm using the wrong pencils or my technique on doing this is all wrong. For me personally, I don't think it's made a huge difference to the vibrancy, and the pencils are just a little bit too hard to control. Let's take a look at hack number 3. So Sydney says, use a Luminance blending pencil to blend polychromos. The polychromos blender smudges your work, but the Luminance one will not. So let's give it a go. In order to test this, I needed to put some polychromos down on the paper so I actually have something to blend. So I thought I would start with a red, the same red that I used in the last test. And I once again put down a swatch that went from light to dark. I then, so that I could compare using the blender to not using the blender, I only used it on the bottom half of the swatch. And as you can see, it actually blended very nicely. It looked much more vibrant, particularly on the lighter areas on the part where I had used the blender, and it did make it look far smoother. I wanted to see if it did the same with the blue pencil, so once again I made a swatch going from light to dark. And actually I think it worked even better with the blue. It looked really vibrant. It almost looked like how the pencil looks when I use a solvent to blend it, but with the added bonus of not needing to use a solvent to blend it. Next, I wanted to see how this compares to blending with the white pencil from the Polychromos set. I tend to find that the white doesn't go on top of other colours, it tends to just blend what's there. And I would say that the Luminance blender works way better than the white. After that, I wanted to test how it blends on a more complicated gradient. So I made a gradient going from yellow to red to blue. And I particularly wanted to see if I could just blend from left to right without it smudging all of the colours and making a big mess basically. And as you can see, I am just going across from left to right with the pencil. I'm not worrying about going from light into dark or anything. And it is making the colours look more vibrant, I would say. And actually it didn't seem to smudge anything. It just blended the area that I was working on. I think this was a good hack. I think it worked really well. It worked much better than using the white Polychromos pencil. And it almost made the pencils look like I'd used solvents without using solvents. So that's cool. Now let's take a look at the final hack. Jenny French said, I bought the Caran d'Ache water brush, the one with the pointy fibrous marker tip, and filled it with Neutral Thin, which is a odorless blender. Colour pencils are just oil paint with some wax blender in the pencil. Now I have a large side angle or a small point I can use to blend my pencils. To clean it, I just squeeze the button and it dispenses more, and I wipe it on a paper towel. So the first thing I did was to buy the Caran d'Ache water brush, and then I needed to work out how to fill it up. The Caran d'Ache water brush is usually used for putting water in, but that's not what we're going to do in this hack. So I screwed the top section off, and then it's got this syringe that you can pull out, which then sucks up the liquid. Now in the hack it said to fill it up with Neutral Thin, but I can't seem to get hold of that in the UK, so I filled it up with Zest It, which seemed to be a reasonably good alternative. So I needed to put the end into the Zest It and pull up the syringe, and as you can see that pulls some of the Zest It into the cartridge. I tried a few times but I wasn't able to get it any more full than this, but I think that's more than enough to be able to do what I need to do. So I screwed the pen back together and gave it some squeezes to get some of that Zest It onto the tip. And then that's the water brush all set up. Now that I had the water brush set up, I needed to give myself something to blend. So just made a simple gradient going from blue into red, and I once again used the Polychromos pencils to do this. So now I was able to just draw over the top to blend this. And it was extremely easy to control, especially in comparison to using a cotton bud, for example. I then wanted to test how easy it was to be precise with it. I certainly expected it to be easy because there is such a fine tip on the end of the water brush. So this time I just put down a patch of blue, and then I thought that would make it a bit easier for me to see the blending. So just wanted to make a thin line going through this blue patch of just like a loop-the-loop, just to see how fine the line was. And then on the right hand side, I made some little flicky motions just to see again how good it is at making those sorts of marks. I did need to put more zest it on the brush as I did this though, so I was able to just squeeze it and then carry on. Now I certainly felt like it was able to do really good fine detail, but I did think I should probably compare it to my usual method. So I made another swatch which I can then try and do that same loop the loop, but with a cotton bud this time instead. And as you can see, this time it did not work as well. It was nowhere near as fine. I just made a big mark on the paper. So I would say, particularly if you want to blend with fine detail, this is really good. This is a really good hack. Now the last thing I wanted to test was how to clean it. So the hack said that you can just squeeze some more of the liquid onto the nib and then wipe it on a tissue. But actually I would say that the nib isn't even particularly dirty. I did do that, however. It looks a little bit blue on the end, but as you can see, when I actually put it on the paper, it seems to be completely clear. I would say that it is a clean nib that is maybe a little bit stained by the blue. So all in all, I think that this hack worked extremely well, and it is definitely something that I will be bearing in mind for future drawings. Alright, I've really enjoyed doing these hacks. If there's a drawing tip or any art hacks that you would like me to try of yours, just leave a comment below. I'll see if there's some that I can select so we can do this again. Until then, happy drawing guys, and I'll see you in the next one.